Welcome to today's episode of What the Feels, where we talk about movies, books, shows, and other media and the mental health topics they may or may not explore. My name is Brenna Talamantes, and I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist in Texas. I work with kids and teens and specialize in grief, anxiety, school issues, and life transitions. Today on the podcast, we have Christina here to talk about the movie Wonka. Christina, welcome to the podcast.
Hi, thank you for having me.
I'm so excited you're here, and I love this movie. So I was so glad that you were like, let's do Wonka, because then I got to watch it and it's so cute.
So cute.
So Christina, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, I have a private practice in Mansfield, Texas. I work with families, couples, and adolescents mainly. And I live in Arlington. I grew up in Arlington. So this is my home.
I love it. We have some DFW energy today. So let's get to feeling. So today we have a summary of the movie Wonka. So we're talking about Wonka from 2023 with Timothy Chalamet, who was just like great for this role. This whole cast was fantastic. So here is our summary. If you haven't watched Wonka, pause here. If you don't want spoilers, go watch it, come back. Okay, are you back? All right, here we go. So, Willy Wonka is the mastermind behind some of the most delicious and innovative chocolate creations the world has ever seen. But before shaking up the chocolate industry and making a name for himself as a confectionery genius, the ambitious young creator had to defy all odds. As a result, Willy transformed his wildest dreams into reality with a bold vision, determination, and unexpected help from new friends. After all, hard work and a dash of magic can make anything happen. Because as Willy already knows, it only takes a dream to make a difference. How cute is that summary?
Love that.
Would you like some fun facts about this movie?
Absolutely.
Okay, so I'm going to move this up to number one. This movie has some Dallas ties. So since you grew up near AT&T Stadium, this you'll well not that AT&T existed till like what 2012, 2013, I don't know. But Calla Lane, who plays Noodle, booked her first role, like lead role, at the age of 4 in a production of the Dallas Summer Musicals, which is now Broadway Dallas. And shortly after that, when she was 5, she booked a principal role in a commercial for AT&T that played at the Dallas Cowboys AT&T Stadium and was seen by over 1 million fans. So I thought that
Wow.
was so cool.
That's amazing. I didn't
When
even
I
know that.
when I was looking it up and finding all my trivia facts on IMDb, they actually showed a clip of this commercial and I vaguely remember this commercial and I was like, that's so cool. So she's got some Dallas ties and I'm here for it.
Energy. I love it.
Yes. Um, so Timothy Chalamet got sick multiple times during this production due to how much chocolate and candy he had to eat. Um, which I'm not shocked. I'm sure more people got sick. I actually was reading like a producer also like got sick a lot from all of the things he ate on set. And that all of it was real. They had like a confectioner, a chocolatier come in and make all of these like treats. So why would you not try them?
Right. Hard
And
to
last
resist.
Yeah, and last fun fact, while this movie tells an original story with no connection to any prior adaptation of the film, the director Paul King developed the film to exist as a companion to the 1971 film by reprising some of the music, thematic elements, and the visual design of the Oompa Loompas.
Mm.
And so we do see we have the pure imagination kind of theme throughout the film. I also saw some articles saying that like the 3 mafia guys and then the policeman had kind of references to some of the kids from 1971, like Veruca Salt
Ah,
and all of that. So I thought that was interesting.
yeah.
But
The chocolate cartel.
the chocolate cartel, when they kept saying that, I was like, what? That's so the chocolate cartel. So Christina, what was it about this movie that kind of stands out to you? What kind of drew you to it to talk about today?
Well, I think it had so many themes, right? Like a hat
Mhm.
full of dreams. And I mean, I can even remember coming out of school and wanting to be in private practice and like feeling like the banks just kept telling me no and all these no's. And I just had to keep going until I found enough yeses. And so I
Yeah.
love that idea of just having a hat full of dreams and the tenacity. And I love when she was with the giraffe and, I forgot to be sad. It was just these
Yeah.
ideas and themes and things like that. So I thought that would be fun to talk about.
Yeah. Yeah. I feel like, as we're working with clients, sometimes that phrase, although may not exactly, but that I forgot to be sad. Like as we're seeing kids transform, teens transform, adults transform, coming out of some of the things that have been hurting their mental health as they're starting to work through and process trauma, they start getting to the point that they start enjoying bits and pieces of their life. And it's kind of that vibe of I forgot to be sad, which we as therapists were like, oh, like that's so great. Like
Yeah.
I love that you forgot to be sad. Tell me more about that.
Right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Absolutely.
And so we obviously honor their sadness and the hard things, but it's so hopeful when they have that first moment of I forgot to be sad, kind of like
Mhm.
Noodle. Um, I
And
love
it
that.
reminds me of my grandpa came from Missouri with
Okay.
25 cents in his pocket to come to Texas. And
Yeah.
was a journalist for Outdoors Magazine. So I guess it kind of gave me those vibes of, oh, that's like my grandpa on that. Not that he was on a
Yeah.
boat, but how
Right.
Wonka gave his last shilling, I guess is what they called him. Can't remember, but anyway, he gave
Yeah.
his last one to that poor lady and then ended up in the hotel that you never get out of.
Yeah. And it was so hard to dislike Olivia Colman. It was so hard to not
Oh,
like her.
yeah.
Because
She's
she
really a
plays
good
like so
actress.
many endearing roles. And then in this one, you're like, ah, you suck.
Yes.
What kind of thing? I know like hope really resonates in this film. Like
Mm,
we see Wonka, he at the beginning of the film, he's coming off of the ship. He's been like touring the world for 7 years, kind of perfecting his chocolate and other candies, and he goes to kind of this made up European village. Like there's some parts that are a little German, there's some parts we can see that are a little French, there's some parts we can see that like are reminiscent of like London and the UK. And so just kind of this melting pot. And it took me a while to figure out that like all three of like it was just like this chocolate candy hub situation.
mm,
And at first, of course, I think part of this film talks about capitalism, but that's not mental health. So we're not going to talk about it that much. But I just thought it was so funny. I'm like, why would three chocolate factories be right next to each other? I'm like, that doesn't
right.
make any sense.
Mhm.
So I guess the chocolate cartel makes more sense once you figure that out. But my business brain was going, that's not a very good idea. So then
Right.
I'm looking at Willy Wonka going, why are you trying to do this here? I,
Uh-huh. You
that
could have picked a
wait,
better location.
or just like one that didn't have three chocolate tiers like all in
Mhm.
one square. Like, what are you
Yeah.
doing?
Right.
But that's how confident he was.
Uh-huh.
And I loved that. He knew that this was the place to be for chocolate, and he was so confident in that fact. And we'll have to give him that.
That's true. And the price gouging, I can imagine that was happening, like you said, not to go into capitalism too much, but when
Right.
there is that need.
Yeah. Yeah. Wild. So I think there's other places he could have been, but where he goes, this made up village, he finds has this found family. So in this film, I don't think it's discussed much about where his dad went, or maybe I missed it. Um, and I think his mom dies.
Mhm.
I think I walked out of the room at one point and like was switching over laundry or something, and so I forgot to rewind. Um, so Willie's been on his own for a significant amount of time. It sounds like he hasn't made too many like friends or connections along the way. But then when he gets stuck in this wash house, he very quickly finds people like Noodle kind of um what's the right word? Connects with him rather
Mhm.
quickly. And I mean, the very first night together, he was like, "Do you want some chocolate?" And she goes, "I have never tasted chocolate." And
Yeah.
he's like, "What? Never tasted chocolate?" And even in all of his um growing up kind of in poverty, he would get his one chocolate bar for his birthday, which is kind of resembles Charlie from
Mhm.
the original of he got his one chocolate bar for his birthday. So that was pretty cool.
Yeah.
The connections are, if you are a Wonka enthusiast, you can kind of see them throughout the film. But he kind of finds his family and finds his support system. And I
I
really
love how
love
she was
that.
looking out for him at the very beginning also. Read the small print, and as
Right.
this paper unfolds and unfolds and unfolds, she was trying to help him out like a random stranger, right? Trying to prevent what happened to all of them to happen to him. So I thought that was really
Yeah.
sweet. Mm.
Yeah. And then realizes that he doesn't know how to read. And
Mhm.
so she takes it upon herself after what I'm sure is very long days for all of them working that she's like, I'm going to teach you how to read.
Yeah.
And just this kid teaching this, I would assume Willie's probably like late teenager or maybe early 20s at this point, but this kiddo trying to teach
Mhm.
to read, she's like, "Yeah, I'm going to do that for you."
Yeah.
Like there's just it's so kind and um
'Cause it was speaking it's like that nature and nurture, it got me
mhm,
thinking because she's not been in an environment that's very thoughtful of others, and so
right.
the very fact that she even could think to be thoughtful
Right.
is really amazing, that shows that you don't have to be a product of your environment.
Right. Right, and that you can still be caring and wanna help people, yeah, no
Mhm,
matter where you come from. I think um, it was really interesting to me how fast everybody connected at the bathhouse and wash house? Wash house, and I think that that kind of a little bit of that trauma bonding situation going on of like we're all in this kind of bad situation together, but they're going to try to make the most out of it and try to help each other and be kind to one another. And I loved how Willie, like without fail, right from the start, is like, we're all getting out of here. And
mhm.
he found a way to make their work less. And then they all start working as a team
Yeah,
and
everybody
working as
using their skills.
yeah, yeah, and working
Mhm,
as a team to achieve Willie's dream.
mhm.
Like, it's not necessarily their dream other than to get out of the wash
Yeah,
house. Um, but they were all working together to achieve his dream, and I loved that.
yeah. Mhm.
Yeah. I thought that
Yeah,
Abacus Crunch was a funny name for someone who was good at math.
yeah.
It took me a minute to put
Same.
it together, and then when I did, I was like, "That's hilarious."
Yeah, they can crunch numbers.
Yes. Yes, and I also liked the pun of noodle as well because she's so smart and bright and, you know, noodle is another name for brain, and so
Mhm.
I thought that was really punny, I enjoyed that.
Yeah. When he was trying to find words that rhyme with noodle. Oodles and oodles of noodles.
Right.
So
Right.
cute.
You know, and I don't know, I kept waiting for something to f fall apart, like, you know that
Mhm.
there we all know there's going to be some conflict, that's how all of these things work. Maybe I've been filled with anxiety and dread this week, who knows? But I just kept
Mhm.
waiting for things to fall apart. I'm like, something's gonna happen with this friend group, something's gonna happen. Um, like he and Noodle are gonna have this big falling out, and they didn't like all the things that happened to them. Like that group of friends stuck together.
Mhm.
And I thought that was so special.
Yeah.
And like
It's
it's go ahead.
It reminds me of a book I read called Find Your People, and they talk about the different types of friends that you have. You have your sage friends, your challenger friend, the person who's always going to be there, the fun one, and so they all just kind of found their circle of people,
Yeah.
and I thought that was amazing.
And all with different strengths.
Uh-huh. Because
That's
it's really hard to find your people when as you
oh
get a
yeah.
little bit older and you don't have your core group of friends from high school anymore or junior high. So
Yeah.
yeah, makes it
Yeah.
challenging with all its chapter. My
Um
son is older now, but he used to play basketball and baseball, and so I had all those core groups of friends, and when we didn't have that in common anymore, it's like, oh, now what?
Right. Right.
Mhm.
Some of like the self-care and things that we talk about with our clients is that I kind of remind them, like what that book is telling us is find your person that's gonna help, like who's gonna listen to you on a bad day,
Yep.
who's going to be the one that you're going to call and they're ready to go out anywhere. You want to go to brunch, you want to go like hang hang out somewhere in the city, like what do you want to do? Let's go. You need your
Mhm.
shopping friend, you need your friend that like really understands whatever your big like trauma or stuff is. Like I have my grief friends that I text and I'm like, "Oh, today sucks." And they're like,
Oof.
"Why?" I was like, "My mom's dead." And they're like, "Yeah, we get it." Um but like having those friends that fill those different spots and not any one of them is better um
Yeah.
or worse than others. It's just we need different people at different times. And so
And
that is
managing
something.
those
Right.
expectations.
Right. And that it's also okay if they aren't all friends too. Like you don't have to have just this one group of people that you constantly are with this one group. You can
Hmm.
have multiple different groups. You can have different friends that you enjoy doing different things with.
Hmm.
The one that's going over social media now is like, who's your couch friend? Who's the one that
Oh,
doesn't take any energy and that just comes and sits on your couch or your floor and you just eat pizza and just sit there?
yeah.
So, that's one thing that I know that I encourage, especially my teenagers a lot, is find your varieties of people. Not all of your friends have to play baseball. It's
Right.
kind of fun sometimes if they don't. Um,
Absolutely.
so I know I find myself talking to my teens about that a lot. And so I think
Same.
recommending this movie will be
Hmm.
helpful to be like, why don't you go watch Wonka and tell me about their friend group?
Yeah. Because, like, he was really close to Noodle. Noodle was like that friend that would be like, yeah, whatever. And
Hmm.
I feel like the Abercrombie, what was the math one? He was more of that holding you accountable. Like, well, how would we make this work? And what would that look like? Oh, yeah, that sounds fun, So I thought that was
Yeah.
really good.
Abacus Crunch.
Abacus Crunch. That was it. Yes.
Yes. Yes.
Yes.
I think that I'm not going to get over that name. I think it's too funny. I love just the found family that happens in this film. And we can see, some people, we could get into attachment a little bit of like how fast like all of these people became friends. But I think because part of it is they had to, they
Hmm.
had no other choice. And
Right.
especially the people who had been there for a while, they all seemed to like be friendly with one another and like no one was unkind to each other, but once Willie got there, then it was like, oh, well, I used to work at the phone company, and I used to talk all the time, but now I don't talk a whole lot. And it's like, wow, like you're really good at talking and doing those things. So they were able, Willie kind of drew new characteristics or characteristics about them that they had forgotten,
Hmm.
um, to make this little found family.
Yeah.
And um, where is it? I love at the end. He Willie has saved this last chocolate bar from his mom, and he really, I think that part of his story and part of his story in general is this grief and love that he has for his mom,
Hmm.
and he has held on to this one piece of chocolate, kind of with the hope of she would be a part of him eating it, and in the he finally at the very end opens the chocolate bar and there's a note that says it's not the chocolate that matters, it's the people you share it with. And there were six little pieces, so pieces for each of his friends and then him. And Noodle kind of looks at him and goes, everything you remember? He's like, yeah, but in like it's so good. And they
Hmm.
get to enjoy, he shares his mom's last chocolate bar with his friends and with these
Yeah.
people who have helped him to achieve his goal, um, and to take down the chocolate cartel.
Right. Because he
um,
couldn't have done it alone.
no,
Yeah.
no, and I don't, I don't know if he ever intended to. Like at the beginning, we see him kind of selling his chocolate at the very beginning just himself, but he was not resistant to the
Mhm.
help. And I think so often, especially when we've navigated hard things, like it's so hard for people sometimes to ask for help
Mhm.
or to easily accept help. And
Mhm.
it was kind of shocking to me how easy he was like, yeah, we can all do this together kind of thing.
Mhm.
Um, and that was a really, I feel like a good kind of adaptive thing for him to do of like, I'm not going to close off help from people. Even,
Mhm.
that's how he got to the wash house. Cause he was like, oh, I'm just going to
Mhm.
stay out here for the night. And the guy was like, are you sure? Like,
Yeah.
it's really
The
cold out
chocolate
here.
froze.
Right. And then he was like,
Yeah.
maybe you're right. Maybe I should
Uh,
accept your help. And then of course that's how he got into the whole mess. But,
right.
you know, it's kind of interesting. He didn't
Uh-huh.
resist it.
No. And something I researched a little bit after the movie because he said cold water stimulates the neural pathways in your brain. So I was like, is that really true? So I looked it up, and sure enough, it stimulates the vagus nerve, feeling more alert, more attentive, more proud, and inspired, less distressed
Interesting.
into the nervous system. So I continued on my squirrel path of research,
Yeah.
right? And they said, and the research suggested that if you take a cold shower for 30 days, you'll find yourself more attentive, more focused. And so I
Interesting.
didn't have the courage to do it this morning. However, maybe that's something that, it does make sense when you're working with
Yeah.
clients with anxiety. The
Yeah.
tip strategy says put your face in a bowl of ice, right? And for
Yeah.
30 seconds, you can then make better decisions
And now
and
we
make
know
more
why.
rational choices, right?
Yeah. Or
Because when
like
he had to
stick your
jump
head in
in
the
the freezing
freezer.
ocean. Yeah.
Yes. You know,
Yeah.
I may only feel brave enough to do that in like July.
Yeah, I don't know if I could do it for 30 days,
No, no. And I don't even think our water gets that cold in
Yeah.
July.
I don't think so. Yeah, that
No, when you turn it
might
on,
be
it's
hard.
just already warm
Yeah,
because it's 116 degrees outside.
exactly. On the
Yeah.
norm.
Right. Right.
Mhm.
On a typical July day in the middle of Dallas, it is
That's right.
awful. Don't come. Don't
Yeah.
just don't
Yeah,
come here.
nah. I'm
Um
used to it, but the
I mean
average person.
in theory I have lived here my whole life. And
Mm.
I last summer I kept looking at my husband. I'm like, "Why do we live here?"
I didn't
I'm
feel
like,
like it
"What?"
had been that bad, right?
No, but last year it
Oh,
was so bad and my office has started getting warm. There's like something going on
uh-huh.
with the AC unit, I think, in our office right now. And I have a western facing window. And
Mm,
so all afternoon, my office has been getting so warm. So I finally remembered to take a fan back up there because I had to bring it to my house last year because my house was getting so hot because it
sure.
was so hot.
Mhm.
And some
I
of my
put in
kids,
these
they're like,
blackout curtains.
right. My kids
Yeah.
are already like, Brenna, why is it already hot? I'm like, guys, it's not even
Mhm.
hot yet.
It's only April, yeah.
Yeah, today the high's 80. I'm like, enjoy it.
Uh-huh.
It's
Yeah.
only getting worse from here.
Yeah. This is it. This is all you get.
Yeah, I took my dog to the groomer yesterday and I was like, I think it's time to go ahead and start taking hair off of her belly so she can cool off because she's not coming again before the end of May. So,
Yeah.
um, yeah, it's coming. But yeah, okay, so in July, maybe I'll try
Mhm.
activating my vagus nerve
There you go.
with some ice cold water. But yeah,
Mhm.
that is something that we kind of talk to people about with anxiety, but I think it could be good for people navigating a lot of different things.
Mhm. Definitely.
Now I know why people have been doing cold plunges. That's something else I've
Mhm.
been seeing all over social media. I'm like, why are you doing that?
Yeah.
Why are you making yourself suffer for 3 minutes in the ice? I don't get it.
That doesn't sound fun to me. Yes.
No, no, but it at least makes a little bit more sense now.
Mhm. Right. There may be a purpose to it other than
Right.
just a challenge.
Right. I can take things, if they have a purpose, you know?
Right. Yeah. If it makes
Yeah.
sense.
Right. Um, what other things kind of stood out to you in the film?
Um, I I loved how he had such an imagination that oftentimes, I used to be a school teacher and then a school counselor. So my path has been working with kids. And somewhere along the way, we lose our imagination. And
Yeah.
so I think that's why oftentimes people have trouble kind of manifesting, is they have trouble daydreaming, right? And
Mm.
so, and maybe that has been not really rewarded in their past. And so there's the possibility that we somehow lose our imagination. So I love that he was so imaginative, like when he
Yeah.
pictured this broken down building. He walks in and there's like
Mhm.
no stairs, just go straight up, no walls, and he
Yeah.
imagines this place of beauty with chocolate, and
Mhm.
it came into fruition because I think that's kind of what we think about when we manifest something. We have to picture ourselves doing the things that we want to be doing
Mhm.
and really walk the walk, not just talk the talk kind of
Right.
ideas. Yeah.
Right. And that he kind of looked at um the Oompa Loompa character. I don't know if he was ever given a name. Um,
The
but
little
he was
orange
like,
man.
yeah, so he was like, "You want to do this with me?" And he was like,
Uh-huh.
"Oh, okay, great."
I guess
And
I don't have to go back where I came from.
right, right. And so um I think it's kind of that moment that he's walking into this new life that he's creating, which is wonderful, and like happy for his friends that they get to go home and
Yes.
be reunited with people, and Noodle finding her mom. And he kind of walks into this next step of, I'm going to imagine this space to change the world.
Yeah. Here's your new chapter. Should you choose to accept it? And
Yeah.
he walked into it with courage, not fear. And, you know, like I can imagine losing all your friend group instantly like that, like everybody went their
Right.
separate ways, could,
Right.
you could feel some grief. However, he didn't. He just embraced it and was like, okay, whatever the next chapter is for me, I'm still working on my dreams and goals. And instead of, I read something that was talking about, instead of being envious of others, be inspired by them, right? And
Mm,
so I get a sense that he was inspired, not envious, that Noodle got to be reunited with her mom, right? He was inspired more than he was envious, maybe. And there might have been a tinge of envy, I can imagine, that feeling of, oh gosh, she has her mom now, I miss mine, and he didn't. He chose to, be inspired instead. I thought that was beautiful.
I was looking into an interview that Paul King did with NPR, and um he said he kind of took the words of "want to change the world, there's nothing to it," like from pure imagination, and he thought that that was an empowering journey to kind of take this character on. And he wanted to tell young people that if you dream and you've got talent, you work hard, it's going to come true. But the world's not always like that, and it doesn't always reward. So we do see Willie and his friends kind of go through these really tough challenges together. And that um Willie's world, after he's gone through these kind of tough things, is even better than he imagined. And
Mhm.
he got courage to do something rather than being beaten down by it, and to do that alongside his friends, and then to keep going and having that courage and things, because we build courage, and we when we navigate hard things with our friends, that I think that, and it's been my experience and some of my kids' experiences of like, now I feel confident to do this on my own.
Right.
And I
Mhm.
think, us as therapists, we experience this from when we're like little baby therapists, afraid of all the things, to
Yeah.
like getting to where we feel comfortable doing things on our own and in private practice and things like that. I think that we see it with our kids and teens and adults, that we see like they've been through these really hard things, and they have this relationship with us to work through those hard things and be like, all right, what's your next step? What
Mhm.
do you now have the courage to do? We've taken time to process and navigate these things. Willie, I think, not, our grief journey never ends, but he gets to a point with the grief with his mom of, okay, I can now continue forward.
Mhm.
And he's going to take the lessons from his mom and build this beautiful thing that they wanted to do together. And so I think that that kind of really describes the therapeutic process in general. Um, of like going through these hard things and then having the courage to step out on your own and to see
Yeah.
what's next.
Mhm. I got it from here kind of attitude, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's, that's what we want from our clients.
Mhm.
We want them to be able to be like, all right, I'm good. Now we're
Yeah.
always here. We're
Sure.
always ready to welcome them back if they need to have tough things and they need to process them. But
Yeah. The
our
only job you
goal
want to
is
get fired from.
right. We want
Mhm.
them to go. We want them to
Yeah.
be able to go and be like, all right, cool, I've got this.
Mhm.
And, there's we love the check-ins. I think check-ins are great. I think, you know, having someone that you have this relationship with that if you called them, they'll be like, yeah, let me figure out some time
Yeah.
in my schedule. Like we're here. But like
Mhm.
our goal is to let them fly away and
Mhm.
to go achieve their things. Um, and that's kind of it's the best part and the hardest part, I think, of our job.
Absolutely. It's kind of like being a mom. It's the
Right.
best part and the hardest part. When my son moved out, I still get sad sometimes, that he doesn't live at home anymore. I'm super proud of him, of course. But there's
Yeah.
these moments that's like, oh, I miss you a little bit, but you're doing so
Yeah.
great.
Yeah. And it's,
Yeah.
it's hard, especially when you see kids and teens. You're like, "Ugh, I wonder what happened." Like
Hmm.
we finished our therapeutic, like I've had some that I know now are in college, and I'm like, what college did you end up at? Where
Yeah.
did you go? What did you do?
Right.
What are you majoring in? How are you
That's
changing
right.
the world? And it's hard to like not ask and to
Hmm.
not because like
Check in
with
every
your
once in a
kids and your
while.
friends you can be like, hey, how's it going?
Oh,
But
you
with
see him, right?
right, with clients it's like, oh, I'm only gonna know if you just need me again.
Right. It's a tough transition from working in the schools,
I
seeing them
bet.
every day, to private practice to once a week, or I'm better now to, oh, okay, and really
Right,
trusting that they know themselves best
it's
and they
really
must be
hard to
doing
be
really
like,
well.
yeah, it's really hard to be like, are you sure?
Yeah.
Are
I
you sure
can't just
you're done?
go to the classroom and go like, wonder what they're doing in there.
Right, right. This I keep smiling because this movie is just like, it's so inspiring. I'm gonna have to go watch it again. I was gonna watch it a couple more times this week, and then I started a book and I haven't put it down, and it has interfered with parts of my week this week. But I finally started the ACOTAR series books, and that's I texted one of my friends this morning. It was like, I'm not brave enough to finish this book because this is what I think is gonna happen. And I can't do it. She goes, keep reading. I was like, no, I can't. I'm not brave enough. So
So
I
maybe
switched to
don't want to
Taylor's.
know.
Yeah, I was like, I'm just gonna have it in my head that this is what happens, and I'm
Hmm.
done. And she was like,
Lived in
keep no.
bliss.
Yeah, so I took a Taylor Swift break today. But
Nice.
I'm gonna go watch this again this weekend because I'm like, wow, how inspiring was this movie?
Right. Well, and it's funny because I watched it again last night because it'd been a while since I'd seen it, and I picked up on things I missed the first time. So I was like, oh, I noticed on the side of the building it says, "Here today, stay forever," or something like that. I was like, oh, I didn't pick up on that the first time I watched it,
Hmm.
but if you pay attention to the clues, it tells
Right.
you. Hmm.
Yeah. Um, I think that there's just so I feel like the film kind of showed us here's what the world is and here's what the world could be.
Mhm.
Like I think um there's a quote from Noodle that after one point that they've gotten frustrated with trying to get out and like make chocolate and all of that. Noodle says, the greedy beat the needy, Willie. It's just the way of the world. And he goes, you're right, Noodle. I guess that's why there's one other thing to do. And she goes, what's that? And he goes, change the world.
Mhm.
And like we see kind of both aspects in this film. We see like this is the world how it is. Like the capitalism is there, people being greedy is there, people having lots of fine print is there, but there can be so many other things that come out of it, like friendship and hope
Mhm.
and being able to achieve your dreams. And I'm going to be a realist for a second and be like, yeah, not all of our dreams come true,
Right.
and that sucks. but
Mhm.
we can all have hope. We can all get pieces of our dreams. We can all achieve goals.
Mhm.
And we get to see in this film kind of both parts of that. And then if we, at the end with the kind of dilapidated, it kind of looked like a castle to me.
Yeah.
Um, but I appreciated how they have like the daydreams welcome. And at the very beginning, when he was looking at the place to rent, it was like no daydreaming allowed.
Yeah.
And so he got fined. That was like one of his silver pieces went. Um, but you walk into what he's creating with his mind with this dilapidated building, you see how his factory looks
Yeah.
in the
Mhm.
70s film. And so to us like that have grown up watching that original, is it Willy Wonka that was first? Is that Charlie in the Chocolate
Mhm.
Factory was Johnny Depp? Okay. Um we it kind of ties us right back into that and all the lessons we learned from that, and we know at the end we're like, and Charlie gets it.
Mhm.
And I think in this film we see a lot of similarities between Charlie and Willie.
Yeah.
And I think that it's really cool how Willie really seeks out the Charlie. He's looking for him, this boy that comes from not a whole lot, but has dreams and is smart and hopeful. And he's like, half my factory. Like, here you go. And so we know as adults watching this movie what that is tied into and then what continues from there. And, that continued hope, that generational kind of hope that we get. It doesn't all have to be generational trauma. It can be generational hope too.
Right.
Um, and I think that was like a beautiful end to the movie. And of course, I liked seeing all the other little endings that the little orange man with green hair shows us at the end.
Yeah.
But for all of us that grew up watching the original film, it's like, all right, and this is what's coming next. Like he's going to have
Mhm.
this successful career, um, and then he's going to pass it off to someone else who is just as hopeful and deserving. And it's so great.
He's like Gandhi says, he's being the change he wants to see in the world, right? If you don't
Exactly.
want the greedy to beat the needy, then he did something
Hmm.
different. And I mean, he had plenty of greedy, right? Violet, in the original, right? I'm thinking
Right.
of all the
Right. The I
the
want
high
it
maintenance
now.
and the uh-huh, exactly.
Yeah. The greedy. Um,
Mhm.
yeah. All of them have that greed and that all about
Mhm.
me kind of vibe. And now that we're talking about it, I do kind of see the trio of the cartel plus the cop.
Mhm.
Um, I wish now I could remember who was who, but um, I think the one who was Veruca Salt was the one that couldn't. He like shuddered every time the poor were mentioned,
Yes.
and then I don't remember the big kid's name, but the boy that gets sucked in the tube in the river, the chocolate river, like right at the beginning,
Oh,
he's the
yes, yes.
cop.
Yeah.
And so those are the two I remember. But um, we know the continuation of the story, which is cool.
Mhm.
And I liked getting to see the beginning.
Uh-huh.
It was
Showing him
pretty awesome.
backwards to forwards
Yeah.
was a different kind of different way of looking at it, for sure.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. And even going back to that kind of generational hope, like there's a quote from his mom that says, every good thing in this world started with a dream. So you hold
Mhm.
on to yours. And so
Mhm.
Willie's mom's dream was that he got to keep going. And so although she wasn't there to live a more comfortable life with him and enjoy that, she knew he would do something. And I think we see
Yeah,
that a lot with um people that we work with, that we have to kind of navigate our thoughts and feelings about like, okay, well, the last generation didn't get their sum of goals and dreams. How can I get mine? And the
right.
mixed feelings of, well, I got mine and they didn't. And that dissonance kind of that hurts us a little bit.
Mhm.
Um, but hopefully they get to enjoy it in some way
Yeah.
with you.
Mhm.
So, any other thoughts that kind of popped up to you about this film?
Um, think I kind of covered a lot of the themes and and you opened up some different perspectives I hadn't thought of or caught on to, like the cop and I was like, oh, I just realized that. I didn't catch
Yeah.
that. So
Yeah.
yeah, it was nice having a conversation.
Yeah, I think that there's lots of things that we can pull out of this, like watching time and time and again. We didn't even talk about like the bathhouse people, but I think they are their own mess. And I think it was kind of nice because I think Willy Wonka, like the character in the two films that we had before this, got, labeled as kind of being a little crazy, a little out there, a little like some kind of the quote harder personality disorders. And really, it was
Mhm,
just Willy Wonka is just a guy, a man, a boy who turned into a man who loved chocolate and wanted to share it with the world.
mhm,
And it was so nice to get to see, like, here were his intentions. Here were the people that helped him. Here's what he wanted to do. Um, and so, yeah, is he a little quirky and whimsical? Sure. But that's also what makes him awesome.
mhm,
And I think from the first film, especially, he just wanted to make sure that this thing that he built wasn't going to go to that grade.
mhm.
And so, yeah, some of the quirkiness and the fine print that then he has in his contracts kind of makes a whole lot of sense
Right?
from,
Your life experiences. Mhm.
yeah, yeah. And we got a little bit of an origin story with the, like, what was it, 2005 Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. I didn't love it.
Mm,
That's my least favorite of the three.
mhm.
Um, like with his dad being a dentist and things, but I don't know. I always thought that one
I
was a
don't
kind of weird, but
I
I
don't know
like
if
this
I saw
origin
that
story.
one. Yeah.
It was interesting. It was like to me that one was a little bit more scary
Oh.
than because I think the first one has its scary moments. Like the tunnel is kind of a lot. Um, and there's the, oh my gosh, is Charlie and his grandpa gonna get his head cut off in the big
Right.
fan? Like there's big moments of suspense. Um,
True.
which also kind of mirrored him and Noodle. Kind of rising
Mhm.
to the top of the cathedral and being saved by the little orange man with the green
Yes.
hair.
Uh-huh.
Um, but I really liked that this seemed more of an authentic original like origin story.
Mhm. It's believable, and
Right.
even I just now thought of this, and it kind of brings up being a single mom, right?
Yeah.
Like raising your baby by yourself. I mean, because we don't know the backstory of dad. So it's
Yeah.
all about mom's dreams and us doing this together. And then mom passes away. So we didn't talk about attachment styles and, abandonment and
Yeah.
those kinds of
All of
things.
that. Oh yeah.
Yeah. But I can imagine he would have some trust issues. And
Hmm.
like you said, trusting that man to go, yeah, I guess I could freeze here. Okay, let me go with you. I
Right.
don't
And
know
then
many people
even
that would do that.
right. And then even after that mistrust plus his abandonment,
Yeah.
um, then he still decided to trust his friends. Does that make you still a little wonky? Cool. But like
Hmm.
he had that hope in other people enough to be like, yeah, these are good people and they're gonna help me.
Hmm.
Um, which I think is something a little abnormal
Right.
when we come across people who have had been abandoned, maybe have some like avoidant attachment styles, anxious attachment styles, things like that. Um, I say we are the most unwilling to trust other people.
Yes. The
Because I
walls are
certainly
heavy.
fall into that group. Um,
Yeah, I don't know
but
if
it
I'd be going off with that guy who looked really scary with the scary dog. So,
no, I would rather freeze.
the same.
Um, but I love that he had that hope in other people
Yeah.
that people were just trying to be genuine.
Hmm.
Um, I love that for him. It wouldn't have happened for me.
Yep. Nope. Probably would
But
freeze
if
to death.
right, but if he hadn't done that, he wouldn't have found his actual friends. So it all worked out for
Absolutely.
Willy Wonka. I'm not going to
Right.
say that would work out for
Yeah.
everybody, but for this very sweet fictional story,
Yes.
I love how it turned out.
I love the idea of it, all of that.
Anything else you wanted to talk about before we ended for today?
Yeah, I think that was really fun.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mhm.
We both encourage everybody. If you have not watched this film, we actually didn't give you too many spoilers. So
Mhm.
You need to go watch it. It is on Max right now. You don't have to pay extra for it, which was so nice.
Yes.
Um, and it's just a beautiful movie that um has a great cast, it has great writing, it has beautiful music, and some songs are like kind of uh will be reminders to the original film, but there's some original songs in there as well. It's just got a whimsical vibe. It's a great film. And just fills
Mhm.
you with hope. We've been sitting here smiling the whole time talking about this movie. So, if any overwhelming feelings came up for you during this podcast, we both encourage you to think about getting a therapist to talk to. There are great ways to search for therapists, including Psychology Today and Therapy Den, because listening to this podcast is not a substitute for therapy. So, although we are both therapists and are talking about mental health things, this is not a substitute. We're here to talk about mental health through the context of media because it's a lot easier to do that than to actually sometimes look within and be like, oh, how much of this am I struggling with? But if you are ready to talk about it, there are people that are ready to listen. We want to give a special thank you to Melissa Adams for our podcast artwork and Crimson for our intro music. And we would love it if you gave us a follow on all of the social media platforms, Instagram, Facebook. We are at What the Feels podcast to help grow our community. We also, if you're interested, we do have a Patreon community, and you can find us at What the Feels podcast if you would like to be a part of that. And Christina, thank you so much for joining us today. Where can people find you?
Thank you for having me. You can find me at my website at counselingwithchristina.com.
Woohoo! Thank you so much for being here. And we hope
Thank
that
you.
you all have a wonderful week. And we'll see you next time on What the Feels.